Seattle's gray skies loomed over the Bennett family's crafts home, its slate blue exterior blending into the misty morning. Inside, the living room buzzed with tension, the air thick with the scent of coffee and unspoken words. Paul Bennett, 62, a retired firefighter turned community volunteer, stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense, his silver hair catching the dim light. His wife, Karen, 59, a librarian with a penchant for order, arranged a tray of pastries, her movements precise but strained. Their 3 kids, Nora, 35, a graphic designer and single mom, Caleb, 31, an aspiring chef struggling with debt, and Sophie, 27, a law student, sat on the leather couch, their faces a mix of dread and defiance. It was Thanksgiving, a holiday Karen had insisted on hosting despite the family's fraying bonds. They hadn't gathered like this since Paul's heart attack 2 years ago, an event that had exposed cracks in their foundation. Nora, raising her 9-year-old daughter, Ellie, alone, bristled at Paul's constant push for her to settle down with a stable job. Caleb, whose food truck business was drowning in loans, felt the sting of Karen's disapproval. She wanted him to follow Paul into firefighting, not play with food. Sophie, the golden child, hid a secret. She failed her bar exam and hadn't told anyone, fearing her parents' disappointment. The living room, with its nautical decor and framed photos of the kids on Whidbey Island, felt like a shrine to a happier past. A picture of Paul in his firefighter uniform hung above the mantel, his grin wide, Karen beside him, both younger, freer. Another showed the kids building a sandcastle, Nora and Caleb laughing as Sophie, a toddler, smeared sand on her face. Those memories clashed with the present, where every word carried an itch. Karen called everyone to the dining table, a polished maple piece adorned with a turkey centerpiece. "Let's eat," she said, her voice tight, adjusting her glasses. Dinner began with forced small talk. "Turkey's great, Mom," Caleb said, though his tone was flat, his mind on a loan payment due tomorrow. Nora nodded, cutting a piece for Ellie, who fidgeted in her seat. Sophie murmured agreement, her eyes on Paul, who sat at the head, his plate untouched. He raised his glass of cider, his voice gruff. "To family, and to not letting each other down." Nora's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean, Dad?" Paul shrugged, his gaze hard. "Just saying, some of you need to step up. Like you, Nora, still freelancing with no security." Nora set her fork down, the clink loud in the silence. "At least I'm not pretending everything's fine while I push everyone away," she snapped. "You've been on my case since I left Mark, but I'm doing my best for Ellie." The room froze, Paul's jaw tightening. Caleb jumped in, his voice sharp. "Yeah, Dad, you always act like we're failing you. I'm trying to make my food truck work, but you and Mom think it's a joke." Sophie tried to mediate, her voice soft. "Can we just eat?" But Karen's sharp voice cut through. "Enough. I'm tired of this." She stood, her hands gripping the table. "I've been hiding how much your fighting hurts. I've been seeing a therapist." "Yes, Paul, I didn't tell you because I can't handle this anymore." The revelation stunned him. Paul's face darkened. "You're sneaking around for therapy after I gave up my dreams for this family." He pushed back, his chair scraping. The argument erupted. Nora stood, her voice rising. "You gave up your dreams. You pushed Mark away, Dad. He left because you made him feel like a failure, and now I'm raising Ellie alone." Caleb blamed Karen. "And you, Mom, you never supported my cooking." You wanted me to be dad, but I'm not him. Sophie, tears streaming, snapped, I failed the bar exam. I'm not perfect, and I'm terrified you'll hate me for it. The room erupted, accusations flying. Ellie ran to Nora, burying her face in her side. Paul stormed to the garage, slamming the door, a shelf rattling. Nora took Ellie to their guest room, her hands shaking. Caleb retreated to the backyard, kicking a soccer ball in frustration. Sophie fled to the kitchen, sobbing as she clutched the counter. Karen sank into a chair, staring at the family photos, wondering where they'd gone wrong. In the garage, Paul pulled out an old sketchbook, his fingers tracing a drawing of a sailboat, a dream he'd abandoned to be a firefighter for his family. Morning mist clung to the Bennett house, the Seattle skyline a faint shadow in the distance. Nora sipped coffee in the kitchen, her laptop open to a design project, while Ellie colored at the table, humming softly. Caleb, nursing a headache from last night's beer, scrolled through loan notices on his phone, his food truck's logo staring back like a taunt. Sophie fed the family cat, her bar exam results burning in her mind. Karen had left early for her library shift, her note on the counter reading, "We need to talk tonight." Nora found a photo in Ellie's backpack, a snapshot of the family at a Mariners game, Paul in a jersey, the kids grinning with cotton candy. It stirred memories, Paul teaching her to swing a bat, his laughter echoing in the stadium. She took the photo to the garage, where Paul sat, the sketchbook in his lap. "Why do you give this up, Dad?" she asked, holding up the photo. "You loved sailing. You were happy." Paul's jaw tightened. "You think I wanted to? I became a firefighter for you kids, for stability. I gave up my dreams so you could have yours." Nora's voice softened, but her words cut. "But you resent us for it? You've been pushing us away ever since." Paul looked at the sketchbook, a sailboat he'd designed at 25, before Karen, before the kids. "I don't resent you," he said, his voice low. "I resent me." The admission hung heavy, a crack in his stoic facade. In the backyard, Caleb overheard Sophie on the phone, telling a friend about her bar exam failure. He confronted her, arms crossed. "You're giving up on law?" Sophie's eyes flashed. "I'm not giving up. I failed, Caleb. I'm scared." Caleb softened, his voice cracking. "I get it. My food truck's failing too. I owe so much, and I don't know how to tell Mom and Dad." Sophie hugged him, her voice muffled. "We'll figure it out. But you've got to be honest." They sat on the grass, sharing their fears, a rare moment of sibling connection. Karen, at the library, shelved books with mechanical precision, her mind on her therapy session from last week. Her therapist had spoken of family roles, how Karen had become the fixer, smoothing over conflicts at her own expense. She wanted to travel, to write a novel, but put those dreams aside for the kids, for Paul. Now, she was reclaiming herself, but the cost: Paul's anger, the family's strain felt steep. She drove home, resolved to face them, her hands tight on the wheel. The day unfolded in quiet tension. Nora took Ellie to Pike Place Market, the bustle a brief distraction, but her mind was on Paul's words. She remembered Mark leaving, Paul's harsh judgment he's not good enough, but also Mark's drinking, the fights she'd hidden to protect Ellie. Caleb met a creditor at his food truck, parked near the Space Needle, the man's ultimatum clear: pay up or lose everything. He drove home, the city fading into dusk, his dreams slipping away. Sophie spent the day at a coffee shop, studying for a bar exam retake, her laptop open to practice questions. Her professor, Dr. Hayes, emailed her, "You're capable, Sophie. Don't let fear stop you." The words lingered as she drove home, the rain streaking her windshield, her resolve strengthening. Karen gathered everyone in the living room that night, her therapy notes in hand. "We're falling apart, Paul," she said, her voice steady. "We have to face this." Paul resisted, arms crossed. "We don't need therapy." Karen stood firm. "We're not a family right now. We're strangers who hurt each other." The discussion spiraled. Nora accused Paul of pushing Mark away, her voice raw. "You made me feel like I failed, but I left to protect Ellie from his drinking." Caleb blamed Karen. "You never supported my cooking, Mom. You wanted me to be dad." Sophie confessed her failure. "I failed the bar exam. I'm not perfect." Paul stood abruptly, grabbing his sketchbook, and drove to a marina on Lake Union, where he once dreamed of sailing. He sat on a bench, the water lapping at the docks, and sketched a new sailboat, the lines a lament for lost dreams. He saw his kids' faces, Nora's anger, Caleb's defeat, Sophie's fear, and wondered if his choices had cost him their love. A week had passed since Thanksgiving, and the Bennetts were at a breaking point, Seattle's rain a constant backdrop to their tension. Nora took Ellie to the Seattle Aquarium, hoping for a distraction, Ellie's laughter at the otters a brief balm. But Nora's mind churned with Paul's admission that he resented himself, not them. She remembered his stories of sailing, the way his eyes lit up, a side of him she hadn't seen in years. She'd seen him as a rigid taskmaster, but now, she saw the man who sacrificed for them. Caleb faced his own reckoning, spending the week avoiding calls from creditors, his food truck parked in a lot near Pioneer Square. He met a buyer, a restaurateur named Leo, who offered to take over the truck, clearing Caleb's debt but ending his dream. "It's a fresh start," Leo said, his voice kind. Caleb signed the papers, a mix of relief and loss washing over him. He drove home, the city lights blurring through the rain, ready to face his parents' judgment. Sophie, fueled by fear, studied for her bar exam retake, spending her days at the law library on campus. She confided in her friend Maya over coffee at a cafe on Capitol Hill, the air thick with the scent of espresso. "I failed the bar," Sophie said, her voice small. "I'm terrified they'll hate me." Maya grabbed her hand. "You're more than a test, Sophie. Tell them." The words echoed Dr. Hayes' advice, and Sophie felt a quiet courage, her resolve to be honest strengthening. Karen, at her library, reflected on her role as the fixer, a habit her therapist had challenged. She'd put her dreams on hold, travel, writing for the family, but now, she was reclaiming herself. She wrote a short story during her lunch break, a tale of a woman sailing alone, the words a release of her own longing. She drove home, determined to confront her family, not as their mediator, but as a woman with her own voice. Paul spent the week in the garage, sketching sailboats, each line a memory of what he'd lost. He found a letter from his father, a sailor, dated the year Nora was born, urging Paul to follow his passion. "Don't let the sea go, son," it read. Paul had chosen firefighting for stability, but the choice had haunted him. He blamed his family for his lost dreams, but the letter reminded him it was his decision, one he made out of love. They reunited for Ellie's school concert, a holiday event at her elementary school, Ellie singing Jingle Bells in a red sweater, her smile bright. The auditorium buzzed, but the Bennets sat in tense silence. Nora's ex, Mark, showed up, his presence a shock. Paul's fists clenched. "What's he doing here?" Nora whispered. "Let me handle this." She approached Mark, her voice steady. "You can't be here, Mark." He pleaded. "I'm sober now, Nora." She shook her head. "You lost that right." Turning to Paul, she said, "You blamed Mark for everything, but he was drinking, dragging us down. I left to protect Ellie, but you made me feel like I failed. You owe me an apology." Paul's face softened. "I'm sorry, Nora," he said, his voice rough, a first for him. Karen organized a family walk in Discovery Park the next day, the air crisp, the Puget Sound shimmering below. "We have to be honest," she said. Caleb spoke first, his voice raw. "I sold the food truck. I failed, Mom." Karen surprised him, her voice soft. "I failed you too, Caleb. I should ve supported your dream." Paul handed Karen the letter from his father. "I gave up sailing for you. It hurt more than I said." Karen, tearful, confessed, "I knew you loved it. I felt guilty for years." Sophie announced her failure, expecting judgment. Nora hugged her. "You're enough, Sophie." The walk ended with a fragile truce, Paul handing Nora an old sketch of a sailboat. "I drew this for you," he said, his voice thick. "I wanted you to dream big." Months had passed since the walk, and the Bennets were taking steps toward healing, though their scars lingered. Seattle bloomed with spring, cherry blossoms lining the streets, a quiet reminder of renewal. Nora landed a stable design contract with a local firm, easing her financial strain. She started painting again, late at night after Ellie was asleep, one piece a sailboat on a stormy sea reflecting her father's lost dream. She sold it at a local gallery, a small victory that felt like reclaiming her creativity. She moved into an apartment in Fremont, a cozy space with a balcony where Ellie planted daisies, their bright faces a daily joy. Caleb pivoted to a sous chef job at a restaurant on Ballard Avenue, the kitchen a whirlwind of heat and orders. At first, he felt like a failure after losing the food truck, but the chef, Maria, mentored him, her sharp feedback laced with encouragement. He created a dish salmon with a blackberry glaze that became a menu staple, earning him praise. He rented a studio nearby, started biking along the Burke-Gilman Trail, the rhythm calming his mind. He thought of Karen's disapproval, but her support at the park had softened the sting, a bridge to rebuild. Sophie retook the bar exam and passed, her relief palpable when she got the results, studying at a cafe near the Space Needle. She called Karen first, her voice trembling. "I did it, Mom." Karen's pride, warm through the phone, lifted Sophie's spirits. She rented an apartment in Queen Anne, started interning at a small law firm, her days long but fulfilling. She missed Seattle's chaos, the rain, the markets, but her visits home were brighter, her secret no longer a weight. Karen progressed in her therapy, hosting family dinners to rebuild their connection. The first few were tense. Paul barely spoke, Caleb was distracted, but they softened. Karen shared her short story at a dinner, reading it aloud, her voice steady. "I wanted to sail too," she admitted, and Paul squeezed her hand, a silent apology. She joined a writing group at the library, her stories a release of her own dreams, a mirror to her family's journey. Paul started sailing again, joining a local club at the marina, their outings filled with salt air and laughter. He shared the sketchbook with his family at a dinner, passing it to Nora. "I drew these for you," he said, his voice thick. I wanted you to know I loved you. Nora looked at the sketches, her eyes wet, and called Paul later. I felt trapped by your expectations, Dad. It was like you didn't see me. Paul was quiet, then said, I'm sorry. Caleb admitted he chased cooking to escape Paul's shadow, and Paul softened. I was wrong to push you. Sophie revealed her fear of Paul's judgment. I thought you'd hate me for failing. Paul took her hand. I could never hate you, Sophie. I'm proud. The family gathered for the Seattle Seafair, Paul sailing in a race on Lake Washington, the water sparkling under the sun. He crossed the finish line, his boat a sleek white vessel, the crowd cheering. Nora, Ellie, and Caleb joined him at the dock, hugging him, the crowd's applause a backdrop. Karen watched, a weight lifting she helped them heal by facing her own dreams. Caleb started a food blog, sharing recipes, gaining a small following. They planned a family picnic at Alki Beach, a symbol of their renewed bond, sharing stories on the sand, the day imperfect but theirs. A year had passed since the picnic, and the Bennetts were transformed, though their scars remained, a testament to their journey. Seattle buzzed with summer, the waterfront alive with festivals, the air sweet with salt water. Nora's design career flourished, her firm promoting her to lead designer, her work on a local campaign earning praise. She published a series of paintings, Shadows on the Water, inspired by Paul's sketches, the launch at a gallery in Pioneer Square packed with buyers. Paul attended, his eyes wet as Nora spoke about his influence, a bridge between their past and present. She lived in her Fremont apartment, Ellie thriving in school, her daisies blooming on the balcony. Caleb's sous chef role evolved into a head chef position, the restaurant gaining buzz for his innovative dishes. He recorded a cooking demo for his blog, Bites of Ballard, blending Seattle flavors with personal stories, earning a loyal audience. He started dating Mia, a server at the restaurant, her warmth softening family dinners, Paul asking about his recipes with genuine interest. Sophie, settled at her law firm, took on pro bono cases, her passion for justice growing. She thrived in Seattle, her confidence soaring, but flew home often, her visits a mix of joy and healing. She brought her colleagues to a family event, showing off her city, her life a testament to her courage. Karen joined a literary magazine, her stories published monthly, her voice a steady anchor. She counseled Caleb through doubts, her words simple but profound. You're enough, Caleb, she said, helping him push through, his next dish a hit with critics. Paul's sailing club grew, a community group funding their expansion, and he built a small boat, Shadow's Wake, dedicating it to his kids. The launch at Lake Union was packed, Paul sailing with Nora, Caleb, and Sophie aboard, Ellie on Nora's lap, Karen beside them. The boat glided, a local paper calling it a testament to family. The reunion was at Whidbey Island, a cabin by the shore, the air crisp with pine. They planted a cedar tree, a nod to their journey. Paul, by the water, told his kids, I chose firefighting over sailing, and I'd do it again. But I'm sorry I let it break us. Nora hugged him, her tears soaking his shirt. Karen added, we all chose wrong sometimes. What matters is choosing each other now. They gathered around a bonfire, the stars bright, sharing stories, Nora about her paintings, Caleb about his blog, Sophie about her cases, Karen about her stories, Paul about his boat. Ellie fell asleep in Nora's lap, the waves a soft hum. Their choices cast shadows, but the ones they made together around that fire shone the brightest.